Thank you so much for joining us on It's Time today. We are your hosts. I'm Lindsley Donnelly, your citizen scientist and your longevity expert for midlife women.
And I'm Dr. Jen Wagner, physician and holistic performance expert. Welcome to It's Time, powered by Prosper. Well, welcome everybody to It's Time. We're so excited today to bring you the absolutely incredible and amazing Benita Fitzgerald Mosley. I had the good fortune of meeting Benita through a leadership group that we both participate in. And then our paths have happened across a couple other times since we've had that initial connection. And obviously inspired by your story, but equally as inspired of what you're continuing to do in midlife. And you are such an amazing role model of how we can continue to reinvent ourselves regardless of how successful we've been in the past. And I think sometimes that's a real hard ledge or hill to get over when you have had this amazing public successful career and you have to reinvent yourself. And so I can't wait to dive into all of the things. And we were just chatting before we started too, even the things that we face as midlife women every day. And so thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Nice to be here, Jen and Lindsley. Happy to join you.
So will you just share a little bit of your background for those that don't know you? Because it's incredible and inspiring and just super cool.
I call my career a career lattice, and it's this opposed to a career ladder because it's been a little all over the place. I go up and down and back and forwards and
I
around in
love that.
circles. I started obviously as an athlete and youth athlete, middle school, high school. I never really did club track growing up until I got to late high school, but I was a state champion in high school multiple times and made my first junior national team when I was 16 years old. This is still during the Cold War, so going to Russia to compete was certainly an adventure. At 16 years of age. And I ended up going to the University of Tennessee to run track in Knoxville. I'm a Tennessee Lady Vol. And I made my first Olympic team as a freshman in college at 18 years old. Unfortunately, it was the 1980 Olympics, and President Carter boycotted those games. So I didn't get to compete. And then made the national team many years after that, and then made the Olympic team again in 1984. There were lots of people who were at their peak performance in 1980 that didn't end up making the team again in 1984. And I'm happy that I was young enough. I was still in college, so I had all those resources surrounding me and was able to make the team to represent the United States. Or those games were in Los Angeles, which was super awesome, and won a gold medal in the 100-meter hurdles. And yeah, it's the thrill of a lifetime, really. And it's a gift that keeps on giving, is what I always like to say, because every aspect of my life has been positively impacted by my participation in sport
Mhm.
and then winning the gold medal. And so wanting to pay that gift forward, I got an engineering degree from the University of Tennessee, industrial engineering. And I actually worked part time as an engineer while I was still competing and training for the '88 Olympics. I missed making that team because I'd had surgery the year before and my comeback was not fully complete. I was winning the race at the Olympic trials and I tripped and fell over the last hurdle, which I absolutely never do, to get fourth instead of the top three. It was a agony of defeat story. But it was a time, my first real pivot, right? I graduated from college. I had a little work under my belt as an engineer part time, and so became a full time engineer. Realized I didn't like it at all, and that's how I shifted into the sports space. Another pivot, right? An Olympic gold medalist, worked at Special Olympics International. Hal Conley, he won gold in the hammer throw in the '50s, and he hired me. His wife was a famous track coach, and so I went to work for Special Olympics. I realized, oh, I could do good in the world. I could be involved in the sports industry tangentially. Ended up transitioning to work for the Atlanta organizing committee for the Olympic Games, the '96 Games. That was super fun,
Yeah.
and ended up being recruited to come run the very first of the brand new Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California. I ran all the Olympic training centers, became a CEO of a nonprofit in the cable industry, and then went back into sport with USA Track and Field as chief of sport. I was chief operating officer of the Olympic Committee, and then CEO of Laureate Sport for Good. And then I went to work for a startup. Lindsley, I know you know a lot about that world, in youth sport, called League Apps, and finally here at Multiplying Good again as a CEO. So as you can tell, it's been a circuitous route. I've been CEO 3 times. I've been a number 2 3 or 4 times. And I'm looking for the next adventure currently. Unfortunately, the nonprofit that I run is dissolving. That's a long story. And so I am pivoting once again. I'm certainly open to having a full-time role, but I'm standing up a consulting company called Lead Leg LLC. And of course, I'm a hurdler. So the lead leg is the first one that goes over the hurdle.
I love it.
But it also stands for leadership and legacy, and really helping develop leaders who leave a lasting legacy in the work that they do.
Yeah.
Well, what a great mission.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you found yourself multiple times as the only woman in the room through this journey,
Absolutely.
especially at the time you were
Sport.
trailblazing a lot of these positions. How do you, I think as leaders who've been in rooms similar to that as one of the only women or only females in those rooms, and as a mom of daughters, like how do you navigate that with confidence? I think, we get a lot of questions, whether it is from our daughters who are entering, growing up, entering the workforce, or even ourselves sometimes that just don't need to feel like we can tap into a different level of confidence entering some of these rooms. How did you do that again and again?
So I like to tell this little story of me being on the track the summer of the '84 Olympics. And I had the year before, they had the first ever world championships in track and field. Before that, you only had the Olympics every 4 years, or Pan Ams, or World University Games or something, but no other big global event. And I'd gotten 8th place, which means I made the final, but I got last, right, in the final. 8th fastest hurdler in the world, but still 8th, right? There's a young woman who beat me named Shirley Strong from the UK, and she started smoking a cigarette after she beat me. And I vowed that she would never beat me again. Well, fast forward, it's a year later. I'm sitting on the track at practice at University of Tennessee, and I was thinking all the same things. The year before, I thought, oh, I want to make the final. Well, I made the final, but I didn't ever foresee myself on the podium, so I didn't get on the podium. That wasn't my visual. My visualization was, I hope I make the final. I hope I run fast. I hope I PR. I hope I beat a certain competitor or something. But no, I wasn't. My aspiration was not to get at the top of the podium. And finally, I asked myself, why not me? Why not me be the gold medalist? Why not me be the one who stands on top of the victory stand, who gets the national anthem played for them, who gets to take the victory lap? Why not me? Why am I always thinking somebody else? I train just as hard as everybody else. I'm actually faster on the flat 100 or 200 than any other hurdler in the world. And so, with all of that, I just changed my mindset completely. And I envisioned my success. I envisioned myself taking home the gold medal. And I beat that girl, Shirley Strong, by 400ths of a second in the final at the Olympic Games to claim the gold medal. And that's the same attitude now I take everywhere I go, because imposter syndrome is real, and it kind of tends to take over your thought process, and you can count all the reasons why you shouldn't do something or can't do something or wouldn't be successful in something, and you got to shift your thinking and your mindset. Guys don't shirk from an opportunity because they're only half qualified or quarter qualified. They just think, I could do that job.
Right.
Yep.
And they just go for it.
Yep.
And so I was director of Olympic training centers at the U.S. Olympic Committee years and years ago. And I was approached by a headhunter about this job to be CEO of Women in Cable Telecommunications. Well, first of all, I'm a director. Yeah, I oversee 4 training centers and 175 employees and all these moving parts and food service and athletes, 25,000 athletes coming through. And there's a lot of stuff I was overseeing, right? But a CEO? I wasn't a senior executive. I was a leader, but I wasn't a senior executive at the Olympic Committee. And I was just like going through the motions, because it was almost like, well, they aren't serious. And finally, they wanted me to come to a final interview. And I'm like, they're serious. So I called them. I said, well, I don't want to move to Chicago, so I'm going to take my name out of consideration. I did that. And they said, well, what if you don't have to move to Chicago? What if you could move back to Virginia and do the job from Colorado Springs? And, you could commute. Would that satisfy you? Like, they were giving me no excuse
That's
for
awesome.
why I couldn't do this thing. They ended up hiring me, moving me. I commuted to Chicago. Then we finally moved to headquarters a couple of years later to the East Coast in Virginia. So, I mean, those are the examples that, you can do anything you set your mind to. but you can also not do anything that you don't set your mind to.
Yeah.
And so this mantra of why not me, I'm just finishing up a book entitled Why Not Me.
Love
I
it.
do a speech and a mentoring program around that, and Why Not Us as well to help teams get there. But that's the mantra that I use every time I come up against, and it happens all the time, something that I feel like uh, I'm not necessarily prepared for.
Love it.
I love that that is also all conclusive around just because you don't have the qualifications doesn't mean the answer is not me. So being able to open that question up really broadly, why not me? Even even though I am just as I am. Because I think
Yeah,
so many people, especially women, will fill in the blank of why not me. Right. And so your positioning of it is, and with all of that, why not you?
great. Yeah, because you're smart and you're capable and you're passionate and you have all the tools, right? And most of these jobs just aren't that, I say not hard. I don't mean that you don't need certain expertise for things, and certainly doctors and lawyers, and you don't want somebody that doesn't have the requisite qualifications. But I just mean having the gumption to just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
How have you thought about that? But you've traversed, and I love that analogy of the lattice instead of the ladder, but you've traversed seasons of life, for profit, non for profit,
Yep.
athletic, operational. How have you thought about it with the filter of, okay, it's midlife, you're a parent of two adult ish almost kids.
Yeah.
How do you start to think about what are the types of opportunities you want to go after in this phase of life, this season of midlife?
I feel like I wanted to have a portfolio career, honestly. I'd love to serve on corporate boards. I want to do more public speaking, paid public speaking, by the way, because
Right?
I
No, that's
speak all the
huge.
time. No, but I speak all the time, but I want to, now I'm ready to get the big check that a lot of these other folks
Yes.
get, right? And to share the wealth as far as the wisdom that I've learned, whether it's Why Not Me or some other kind of aspect of leadership, athlete transition. I helped the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee develop a whole athlete career and education program we call the ACE program
Hmm.
years ago. And so I have some expertise around that. And there's so many kids, whether it's from high school to college or college and beyond, professional or Olympic athletes, to life after sport who have a challenge with that. And so I see myself, there's a lane there and a lane for me after my kind of 9 to 5 type career is over, being able to do that full time. And so I need to build that now. And so just launching a new website, benitafitzgeraldmosley.com. And there'll be an extension of that that's leadleg.com as well. And they'll interrelate as so you can get to the consulting from the speaking and vice versa. But that'll be up now, and it'll be people will be able to find me and book me, and
Hmm.
or I have a few consulting gigs that I'm doing now that this Multiplying Good CEO position is winding down over the next few months. I have a lot of bandwidth. My all 50 employees are gone, unfortunately, and so I'm just helping with the wind down.
Hmm.
And so I have a lot of time and ability now to be able to build this up. And then I'm looking for some place to, I have kind of a superpower being able to build and scale nonprofit organizations. That's where my passion is. I call my personal mission, I help people and organizations win gold medals in life and business.
Love it.
And so, how do I apply that to my consulting business, to my speaking,
Yeah.
and also in a role, a leadership role with an organization? And so that's hard work. And so part of me says, oh, do you really want to do that hard work of building and scaling another, nonprofit? But it's where I'm gifted, and so I feel like I got one more go in me.
That's
Yep.
I think that is, and thinking about like the current state, the athlete transition is such a critical thing that is often overlooked. I feel like, we used to talk about this at several of the companies I've been involved with, that we're pretty good at getting people on the podium. We're not very good at helping them down off of it, and I think it's even going to get more complicated with NIL and these college athletes, getting
Millionaires, multimillionaires.
being multimillionaires without a support system around them. And then how do you, plan longitudinally for that? So I am grateful that there are people with your qualifications and experience and talent in this space to guide people through these transitions, because it is a loss of identity, and I was just a collegiate athlete. And I remember, when I was in medical school, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd start to get twitchy because it was practice time. And I
Yeah.
still felt like so attached to that identity.
Yes.
Um, that it was, even though I had a new one, it
It's
was a
crazy.
challenging transition.
It
And I
is
think that
crazy.
we don't talk about that enough. And
And you
so
said just a collegiate athlete, but as I remind my daughter, who obviously has to live and run in my shadow, you're a D1 track athlete. And of all the kids who ran track in middle school and high school in particular, only 6% run in college. Six. So that means 94% don't. And then about less than 2% are D1 athletes. So you're an elite athlete, whether you like it or not. And you need to take some pride in that, because and so in order to be running or competing till 21, 22 years old, that's I mean, literally, and you're 23 or 24 in medical school, that means your whole entire life was focused on one aspect of sport or another. And it's huge, transition, and just to help these kids find that new identity, embrace it, and honestly keep a foot in sport somehow, because it's hard to just abandon that passion.
and it's amazing when you can be taught by someone like yourself how to channel that passion into the other areas of life, and how applicable those skills are in so many different arenas that, and I think we forget that. And I think that speaks to even your lattice career path, that we have so many things that we can do. Just because it may not check word for the box doesn't mean we're not qualified. I do want to shift gears to something that we were chatting a little bit about. While you're doing all of this, you're also dealing with all of the stuff that we get to deal with as midlife women. So, and we were chatting about this, that, it is our reality that things happen with our kids. And regardless of how involved our partners are, it lands on us. We get the emergency phone calls. We get the eight, just this week, I have a daughter who has a broken pelvis, and I have a dad that had to fly home from his vacation because he wasn't feeling well. And like all of it just pounds us. And yet we have to show up day in and day out.
In
So,
all those places
in all the places, yeah, like you have to be the
at the
mom.
same time.
I have to be the daughter. I need to be the CEO and the leader. What is your advice for trying to manage this like constant bombardment that not only is emotionally and cognitively and physically stressful, but it also challenges our focus so much? I feel like, you sit here and it's like having your phone ding on
Yeah,
crack, right? You're just like,
yeah,
what? How do I
yeah,
handle this?
yeah. I wish I had the magic potion. I started talking about work-life integration years and years ago. I stopped trying to pretend like I had a 9 to 5, and that, my mom life, my wife life was 5 to whatever time, because it's not. I have doctor's appointments in the middle of the day. I have calls. I gotta deal with whatever. So I blended my calendar years and years ago. I know a lot of people have a personal calendar and a I can't do that. Everything goes on my work calendar. My doctor's appointment, my taking Maya to the massage on Friday, picking her up at Thursday night, going to the funeral I have to go to on Wednesday, the interview for a job I have at 1 o'clock today or 1:30 today. Right, I have it all in one place. It's all in my current work calendar, and I've started copying my personal calendar because I realized when I transition out, I want to make sure some of this stuff is in the other calendar, right? But yeah, I look at one and I've transferred the other way. People who I'm doing with consulting, I put it in my other calendar, personal calendar, but I copy my work calendar because I can only really focus on one thing at a time. And my husband and I, years and years ago, used to have Franklin planners. And so every Sunday we'd sit down and compare calendars, and I've got to be here and I've got to be there. And of course, when we had our son, that was really important. Who's picking up, who's dropping off, who's whatever. And then he gets older, and then my daughter comes along, and then, okay, this one has soccer, and this one has track, and this one has football, and this one has volleyball. And so you have to somehow coordinate that. And so his stuff was in my calendar, Maya's stuff was in my calendar, Isaiah's stuff is in my calendar. And so that's one way that I just have to integrate everything. And I no longer make excuses. I was actually on a call Friday for a job interview, and my phone rings. I interpreted it on Do Not Disturb. Why is it? And it was um, a FaceTime call from my daughter. And because she's a favorite, right,
She goes through.
they still come through. And I don't know how to turn that part off. I haven't figured it out because I haven't really thought about it again since Friday. But I'd asked her, this young man who lived across the street, parents were moving to Houston, their senior year in high school, and they were trying to figure out what to do with Brian. He was not senior class, school student body president, state champion, 4.5 GPA, applying to Ivy League schools, blah, 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 like in the orchestra, first chair, whatever. Like he's this super kid and friends with my daughter. They go to school today. They're on the track team. And I was like, you know what, y'all? He can live in our basement. We got a bedroom, we got a bathroom. I'll just have a third kid, you know? And this is during COVID, like right after. And so Brian moves in. So the two of them were to track me together at UCF. And I told her, when you're having lunch together today, FaceTime me so I can see you. So that's what she was doing in the middle of my interview, of course. And so I just told the people on the interview, sorry about that. I don't know why she's calling. And I was like, oh, that's why she's calling. And so I just told them what I just told you about Brian and, having 3 kids for almost a year, and he's part of the family now. So I didn't I apologized for that, for the interruption, but I didn't pretend like it wasn't happening. I didn't
Yeah, you don't hide it.
act
It's
like,
like off the side, you
no,
know?
I can't, because they had asked me, ironically, maybe 10 minutes before, okay, this is all your work stuff, but what are you passionate about outside of work? And I had said, my family. The thing I'm most passionate about is my family, taking care of my family, participating. I said I found out that I could actually go to my daughter's track meets when she's in college. It's like awesome. And I could go and I don't have to take her. I don't have to feed her. I don't have to house her. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I just get to go and be a spectator. And so I had just said that a few minutes before. So when she called, and I felt very comfortable then saying that, right?
Mhm.
And so that integration is really important. And it has been since I got married, but definitely since I started having kids.
Yeah.
Is there anything else kind of in your daily practice? Because you're describing kind of the integrated perspective and then your overarching thought of why not me, and having that as a mantra. Are there anything that you find you do daily to kind of help you keep that mindset powered up?
Yeah, I have a strong faith in God. So I try to start my day with a quick devotional. And then I've been much better the last few months. I've lost about 15 pounds. I was pre diabetic, and I thought, this can't be me. I can't go into the diabetic zone. So, which means I got to get out of the pre diabetic zone, you know? So, I'm hoping that my numbers will be good next time around. I've been really focused on it. And so I work out in the morning, either do the Peloton. I started yoga, which is so hard, y'all. It's like hard, like really hard. You think you're an athlete and then you do something like that. It's like, I don't, downward dog, like, I don't, and then put your leg up and then bring it up. You're supposed to somehow, your feet are supposed to meet up with your hand. That's not happening. Like, I find myself just cheating all over the place. It's just so bad. But at the end of it, I do feel more stretched out and better. So working out, and then I try to also get out of the house because I work from home and walk. Now that it's springtime, I hate the cold, but that means 9 months out of the year, for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes it's 20 or 25. I also try to go for a walk at some point. Hi, like the warmest part of the day. At least now, I'll try to do it the coolest part of the day in a couple months. But what I was trying to say is, if I'm not strong and healthy, then I can't be there for my family, which is the biggest thing. And so when I get those phone calls from my daughter, which I feel like this several days a week, I get something. My son, unfortunately, has had some pretty serious health issues, mental health issues for many years. And so being there to help shepherd that process with him. And then again, my husband is right by my side in that. It's been very stressful for our family, but definitely something I need energy
Yes.
for and emotional stamina to deal with. And so, um,
Yeah.
I think that
I
it's much more common than people expect or dialogue about. Everybody is dealing with some flavor of unexpected stress, either mental health or physical health of kids, probably their parents as well. That is a rite of passage at being in this phase called midlife. There's something most certainly going on in everyone else's life in that arena, but it's just not dialogued about, right? We might talk about our work stress, we might talk about the state of the world stress, but we don't really always kind of open up that really 80% of my mind share right now is that my oldest is having some very challenging mental health issues and I'm not sure how to
Yeah.
navigate it. It's new terrain
Yeah.
or it's exhausting terrain, whatever it has been.
It's exhausting, but I still have to be present for my staff or present when I'm speaking somewhere or present when my daughter needs something or just, present with my friends, I need my own time. And
Hmm.
it's been nice to be so-called empty nesters from a standpoint of my husband and I having more time and traveling together more, and he gets to come to my stuff and I get to go to his stuff, and so that's been a real blessing as well. So, yeah, just trying to do the things I need to do to take care of myself and the people I love.
And I think that is really such mature wisdom. I'm going to put it that way because for so many years, we feel like prioritizing ourselves is somehow selfish or somehow we're not dedicating the time to care for the other people in our lives. And I think it is this kind of aha moment when we say, whoa, if I'm not taking care of myself, one is what am I patterning and role modeling for everyone else? But also, how I can't continue to show up for, there's only so much bandwidth and so much capacity to do that. And so I think creating that shift, especially for women, is pivotal. And I want to even go back and touch on your calendar, your work life integration. And I love that term. I use work life synergy. I have abandoned the word balance a long time ago because it's never in balance. It's never
Mhm.
in balance. And that to me is just a theoretic pie in the sky dream that this is ever going to be in balance. And so I think, again, and it goes back to even what we talked about earlier with confidence, having that confidence to say, this is me as a whole person.
Yes,
And that, yes, sometimes my personal life is going to intersect with my professional life, and that's okay because these are my priorities and I am a confident person that can balance. I just use the word balance, that can integrate these things into where I can still be successful in both.
exactly, successfully. I mean, I think that's what the part that we're all, all hoping for. But the people who employ us or partner with us or whatever just kind of have to trust that that's the case and look at the outcomes, and not necessarily think about, oh, she was, at a track meet all afternoon with her daughter. Well, yeah, I was, because that means I can show up better for you. But you didn't also say I sent you that email at midnight when I got back so that I could, make sure I met the deadline that the customer needed or something, right? So, I mean, you just do what you got to do, and that's just been, my husband's very similar in that way, and we've been there, when our kids were in the house. I mean, we sat down to dinner every night together, and it might be leftovers, but we're eating dinner, and the kids knew, okay, I cook in one night, we're eating leftovers the next night, and after that you can do whatever you want. You can have it for breakfast or lunch or take it in, you can do whatever, but don't be touching my leftovers. Because we eating it again, So you're gonna see it come back around tomorrow night. So, but yeah, I mean, they got used to that. There wasn't the whole, you eat in your room and you eat at this time or that time. No, we're sitting down together, we're having family dinner, and that's what we do.
But so some of the tactical things about that mind shift that you prioritize yourself first. You talk about the calendar integration. I think this is a fortunately it is a more common conversation that people are having, which is self care matters, and that means that maybe when you start doing your calendar planning, you're starting with yourself and you're mentally saying, I need to do my devotional or my workout, and then I have to start my day with the self care component in order to fuel the rest of it. And that is
Yes,
a, I think it feels like it's a relatively recent 4 or 5 year phenomenon that was okay to say out loud, right? That was okay to
it
say,
is.
I'm not coming
First,
into,
right. At first, it started with guys, first women, but then guys too, saying, "Oh, I got my kid has a soccer game this afternoon, so I'm checking out. I'll see you tomorrow." Or or picking up or dropping off to daycare. Oh, I can't do this 8 o'clock meeting because you drop my kid off at daycare, but I'll be in right after that, and we can do it at 8:30. Um, the it was started to be okay for women and then guys to kind of take that. And yeah, you're right, it's taking it to this next level now to say my self care is just as important, and to fit it in however you can. And people do walking meetings, or
Absolutely.
the different aspects that they'll put in. But I plugged it in my calendar, work out and get dressed.
Mhm.
That I usually put around 4 o'clock if I don't have another call. But I'll find the warmest part of the day, and I'm like, okay, it's 4 o'clock today, so
Getting
it's a
outside.
minute. Yeah,
Absolutely.
go outside. Yeah.
And I want to double down on that too, because I think, we get a lot of questions in what we do about, we obviously are focusing on kind of holistic health, especially for women. And this idea of movement and exercise and just how important it is to add some movement. And especially if you can get outside, to add that nature component, change your environment a little bit, how good that is for us. And like you said, it can be 5 minutes.
Yes.
I was just sending my team this morning an article that we read about exactly about doing that, the average desk person sits 10 and a half hours a day. That was an astonishing statistic to me.
Yeah.
And so I am standing at my desk today
I
because I
see.
thought I'm not going to sit.
Yeah.
But
This desk does it, and I realize I don't stand enough, so
yes,
maybe I
but
can
I think
start
just
incorporating that too
the
again.
power in that to say, I'm going to put my headphones in and take my next call outside, and normalizing that for, whether you are a professional or whether it's your social call that you say, gosh, I call my daughter at 2 o'clock on these days. I'm going to walk and do that. Or I call my mom, or whatever, whatever the situation is. And so thank you for sharing that, because I think the more we start to talk about these things, about self-prioritizing, adding some movement in, really planning for the next few decades, that these things, bumps happen in the road, whether we're becoming pre-diabetic or our blood pressures are going up, our cholesterol is changing, that these are things that, especially as midlife women, we have to be aware, not only be aware of, but almost take responsibility for, because a lot of our healthcare.
We do. And ourselves, and sometimes our parents, and sometimes our spouses. I mean, it's important. And the funny thing is, it feels just so repetitious, but every single time I look up how to prevent this or how to make this better from a physical or medical standpoint, it's always eat right,
The
exercise,
basics. Yeah.
get your sleep, stress management. Those things are always on the list.
Yeah. Top of the
They may
list.
say at the top of the list.
Top of the
And
list.
so I'm like, "Oh, here we go again." I guess
But that's the good news. That's the good news because Dr. Jen and I see so many things in this longevity space, and it's always a question like, "Hey, should I be spending my time doing this red light therapy, or do I need to go get a sauna? Should I be cold plunging more?" And all of those things have a place at the table if you enjoy them. There's some science that says they have an impact, but none of them has even 20% of the impact that working out and sleeping and eating cleanly with protein has. So you can simplify and just stick to those basics. But just getting those basics done takes energy and priority and
It
time.
does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you touched on it a little bit, but I want to make sure we circle back. What's next? I think that's such an exciting question that we are able to continue to ask, because I think, when I saw my mom, she passed away a little over a year ago now, but like at this point in her life, there really wasn't a what's next. Nobody was talking
Right.
about that. And I'm so excited that we have reframed this conversation, that what's next?
Yeah.
We're just getting going and continuing to reinvent. So what's next for you?
So once I had to unfortunately lay off all my staff in the fall, I finally had time to really think about what does Benita want to do next. And I thankfully had the bandwidth and the time and the continued involvement with Multiplying Good and my salary and everything for a few more months. So I had this gift. And one headhunter that I was talking to, who's been a longtime colleague, because I knew her when I was in the cable industry 20 years ago, she said, well, Benita, she said, take it full advantage of this time. Like, don't work 24/7. Don't be only focused on getting another job. She said, what I want you to do is have one significant call a day, 5 a week, 20 a month. And the rest of the time, enjoy this time. She said, the only other time I've had this kind of time is on maternity leave. And
That's not time. That's not time.
That's not relaxing.
Let's be honest.
let's be real honest, okay? That is not a vacation
No.
at all. That's not time away. That's not time for yourself, really,
No
at all.
recharging happening there at all.
Maybe when the baby's sleeping and you're,
Yeah.
know, after whatever side they sucked on for, for nourishment during their feeding. But it was an aha moment for me to hear that from Michelle. So I put that to the test, and I started really in earnest in January, and so many different opportunities have started to pop up as a result. And then February I got sick and with the flu. Well, it's a long story, but my brother-in-law was in the hospital for 5 weeks with a heart issue, and so my sister was staying there, and she has a daughter who's a granddaughter, and so I said when he finally got out of the hospital, they were sick. I was like, you have to just come stay at my house because you can't be getting Antonio sick. So of course, a 2-year-old great niece sneezing in your face all the time, and I ended up getting pretty sick. So I felt like there was a lull in February, but I'm back at it in March. And I think I'm in like 4 or 5 job opportunities have come out of that. At least half a dozen consulting and speaking opportunities have come from that. And they're just great conversations. I don't want anything from anybody. Like, I just want to tell you what I'm thinking about. You tell me, and many of them are old friends or old colleagues that I haven't spoken to. So just catching up. Yesterday, she was her daughter Layla and my daughter Maya were in preschool together at 18 months old, and so we've known each other since our daughters were 18. They're 21, and Layla is October birthday. Maya's November, but Bianca decided to put Layla forward and put her in first grade, and I decided to have my daughter do kindergarten, go from the private kindergarten to public kindergarten. But long story short, Layla's graduating, and Maya won't graduate till next year. But regardless, we kind of, because the girls are gone, we haven't been in great touch. Well, we talked for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes yesterday. She's a comms guru, right? Everything social, everything AI, everything comms or marketing, and she does these executive brand work. And so she's going to turn her lens on me.
It's awesome.
And so she's going to be the one that she's the one that's doing my websites. And she's the one who's going to just come up with a PR plan for how I really promote myself and get myself out there. She'll do the SEO for the websites to make sure they're at the top of I don't even know all that stuff,
Right.
but she's, we'll barter. I will promote her consulting business and the things that she's doing on the side. And you just don't, because of that phone, she texted me about something, and I was just like, what, let me talk to Bianca. And so that's what I've been doing how do I reinvent myself? I got to discover that, right? Discover what is I'm great at, what is I want to do, how I want to do it, who I want to work with, all of those things. And thankfully, I've had this time to figure it out. And these significant conversations, I count this conversation with the two of you as being my significant conversation for the day. And they come in all shapes and sizes, but I think I will continue, maybe not daily, but I think I'll continue this practice long into the future, because there's so many people in my life that enrich my life, but I don't get to connect with them very much.
That practice. I hope you do keep doing that, because I'm going to copy it.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I think the power of connection, right? But two, reaching out to ask the question. And I think I'm going to tie this back again to confidence. It takes a lot of confidence to do that, because sometimes you're not quite sure the answer you're going to get, but the value of doing it, and like the first time you do it and you're like, oh, that wasn't quite as scary as I thought, but just the amazing conversations that can happen. I had a similar experience when I was transitioning out of clinical medicine, to look to people to say, I wasn't actually sure what I was good at other than being a doctor. That's all I'd been. And so having those conversations and saying, wow, where do you think I should look? And starting to ask a lot more
And
questions.
other people tell you, they'll tell you all the gifts and And many times, oh, do you remember the time you said such and such to me? I'm just so appreciative that you said da da da, or you did this kind thing, or you connected me to so. I don't remember any of that stuff, right? And so when I email someone and say, will do you have a few minutes? Or I text them, hey, I'd love to catch up. Whatever. Then, oh yeah. I mean, they get back right away. And honestly, you don't even know how in some ways you've impacted these people's lives too.
Yes. And I think we forget that. I think we oftentimes are like, "Oh, I don't want to bother someone," or "I don't want to be an inconvenience," and how mutually beneficial these conversations are and the ripple effect from them.
Yes. Yes,
Is it
because they all give you at least one name, if not multiple, that you can connect to. And I found myself booking the next 2 weeks of conversations the week before because you always kind of be kind. Well, do you have time in the next couple of weeks? Here's my calendar kind of thing. People, usually within the next couple of weeks have 30 minutes that they can spare at some point. Yeah, it's been amazing. I will say it's bstrategies.com because I did promise her I was going to say that.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, because I think that it's important to really promote other women and
Mhm.
support what they're doing. And she's amazing. And whether it's comm strategy, AI strategy, executive presence, I mean, she's just remarkable and
Absolutely. We'll get
fast.
her full info and we'll make sure we put it in the show notes and so people
Yeah,
can find her as
perfect.
well.
Thank you.
So the new website's coming.
Yeah, Benita Fitzgerald Mosley.com.
Okay.
Yep. By the time this airs, it should be up and running, I think.
Wonderful. Speaking engagements, consulting. Okay.
And then the
And then what
nonprofit that supports leadership and mission.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm finding my way in this consulting space, doing some work with Syracuse University and their college, Falk College of Sport, and really advising them. I'm doing some leadership training with their staff and their students. I'm doing some advising to the college about how they're transitioning from being a college of sport and humanities to just college of sport
Mhm.
and what kind of areas of study might be the best for them. I think of the top research universities, they're going to be the only college of sport. It's a standalone thing. So that's pretty cool. And so I just want to find ways, whether it's in sport or leadership, are the two areas I think that are most applicable to the work that I do, and women in leadership and women in sport.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
real passion as well.
Well, thank you for your time today. I love having these conversations and it's morning for us and what an amazing way to start my day. I feel like I have so much energy. I'm going to go stand outside in the sunshine for a minute. I'm going to go for a little walk,
Yeah.
all the
I'm
things.
gonna say why not me I'm having a mantra
Yes.
conversation.
Every time you pay something, you're like, really?
Yes.
And it was definitely the motivation I needed today as well, because I think as we all kind of ride this roller coaster, especially through midlife, I need to be reminded, why not me? And so thank you for planting that seed for us today. And just thanks for taking the time because I know you're so busy and starting this next chapter. And so we appreciate you taking some time to chat with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us here today. If you liked what you heard and you got some tips on how to live better right now and for the long haul, please help us reach more midlife women. Please share and rate and like this show. And we can't wait to continue the dialogue with you on our next episode. Until then, thank you. It's time.